Welcome back to Your Health Truth. I'm your host, Brock Hardman, and it's the third episode of Digestion for this week, and which brings us to the conclusion. It's the last part, and it's probably the most graphic, so apologize, but it's very necessary. It's something that everyone needs to understand, and why I am very highly on the last part of digestion. So we talked part one about how first your food goes in your mouth. You have digestive enzymes, you have saliva, you have stuff that breaks the food down. Then it goes into your stomach, and your stomach acid will break it down. Next, it will pass through to your duodenum, and your liver gallbladder will break down further fats and proteins. And then it will go through your small intestine, where you will have, your good beneficial bacteria, which also assimilate the food, and a lot of other processes that I won't get into in detail. But basically, your small intestine does a large amount of the absorption of nutrients. So, if you aren't getting the proper nutrients, it's because your small intestine has problems. And I'm going to touch on one of the biggest issues here at the end of the video. But this is part three, so I'm going to briefly touch on the last part of digestion, and then I'll circle back around to that. So, after your food makes its way through the small intestine, it will go down to the large intestine, also known as your colon. And this is very important that you have a clean colon. Colon cancer, I don't know if it's on the rise, but I know it's extremely high. I know that it's higher now than it was, 100 years ago. And the reason for that is the foods we are eating. So if you don't digest your food properly, your food will actually collect in your colon and begin to rot. And so that's gross. I think the statistics are most people by the time they're age 40 have between 5 and 10 pounds of undigested fecal matter in their colon. So it's really no surprise why we're getting high rates of colon cancer. You have, think of your colon as the pipes to your, kitchen sink. Over time, over 40 years, let's say, you start having buildup. Grease or whatever will go through the pipes, and next thing you know, you have buildup, and the same thing happens to your colon. So there are products you can take that will clean your colon out. There are foods you can eat that will clean your colon out. You can get a colonic, you can do enemas, but I urge you to have a clean colon. If you're not having a bowel movement at least once or twice a day, then you're constipated, and that's bad for your digestion. So you want to have a clean colon. It's the most absorbent organ as well. So just know that your colon is very toxic. It's the last place that the food goes that you eat, where you have debris, bacteria, all this. It's gross, basically. So you want to get it out of there as quick as possible. And if you have sluggish digestion, it sticks around for longer than it should, and it becomes overly toxic. So if you're curious, leave me a message, and I can respond to you with answers if you have questions about products to take or ways to have clean colon, and I can respond to you and give you some suggestions. There's a product I recommend called Fiber Fusion. That's pretty good. There's a few other ones, but I'm going to actually start selling that one pretty soon because it's my favorite. It's not very expensive, and it's highly effective. And so, that wraps it up. If a lot of people have issues with digestion, issues with bowel movements, maybe even hemorrhoids, stuff like that are painful, and it's because you're not going enough, and it's because you're having to strain to go to the bathroom, and that's causing problems in places you don't want to have problems. So like I said, feel free, leave me a message, shoot me an email, whatever, and I can send you some feedback. So that wraps up part three of digestion. They're all three equally important. You want to have good digestion throughout. But finally, I want to go back to what I was talking about before, which was small intestine. So, digestion of the small intestine, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. And long story short, what happened to me personally was a condition called leaky gut syndrome. And so do some research on leaky gut syndrome if you have digestive problems, because chances are most of the time the source of digestive issues begins with leaky gut syndrome. So you have all these Crohn's, celiac, candida, IBS. I mean, there's probably 10 or 15 different digestive disorders that people suffer from. And, whether it's marketing or doctors or whoever wants to come around and coin a phrase for a certain, disease or condition, there's a way to make money on it. So I could come up with, the Brock-Hardman disease. And it's a digestive disorder that it causes inflammation of the digestive tract. Don't know what causes it, but if you take this drug, it will help alleviate that. Now, I'm not saying that every single disease is caused by leaky gut syndrome, but if you look at some of the symptoms of leaky gut syndrome, it encompasses almost all of the diseases. So, something to look at. Now, my prediction, and hopefully someone can hold me accountable to this 5 years down the road, but my prediction is between 5 and 10 years from now, the medical community will finally accept the fact that leaky gut syndrome is the number one cause of digestive problems. So, mark my words, it will become more and more popular as time goes on and people are more aware of it, but just know that leaky gut syndrome is a condition where, based on what you eat, drink, maybe drugs, alcohol, there's a whole range of problems that basically cause your intestines to become inflamed. When they become inflamed, it's like this. Basically, you have tight coupling of your your epithelial lining is what it's called, but it's really tightly coupled when it's functioning properly. When you eat foods or do drugs or whatever that cause it to become inflamed, like coffee, there's a lot of foods that will cause it to become inflamed. Well, they start to separate. Inflammation causes it to separate. So now you have loose coupling of the epithelial lining, and now you can see that there's holes right here. See? So what happens is you eat foods, the undigested particles go through these holes and directly into your bloodstream. And your body starts attacking those food particles because they're foreign proteins. Your body's like, whoa, 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 this isn't supposed to be here. Let's attack it. So then you start getting food allergies. Then you start, feeling bad all the time after every meal. And it's a slow, slow death. But just do some research on leaky gut syndrome. I had to learn the hard way. And most people don't even know about it. I mean, if you went to a doctor and said, hey, have you heard about this leaky gut syndrome? He's going to be like, what? Most people just don't know about it. So, hopefully this information will help you out. There's a product called L-glutamine. It's a powder, which is very good at healing that. And there's also some anti-inflammatory products you can take. So, hopefully now you are more educated on digestion. I know I didn't get into extreme detail, but at a high level, hopefully you understand why digestion is so important and just how many diseases and problems can come from people who have poor digestion. So, until next week, take care, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you on Monday.